I want to jack up this C7 Z06 so that I can change oil and Urax lubricants and things like that myself. And years ago, I made a fixture for the C5 FRC, nice car. And I made it out of a little bit of angle iron, a little bit of wood. And you can see it's got some wood blocks to rest on the steel frame of or the aluminum frame of the car underneath, and some little stop blocks so that you don't slide it too far in. On the bottom of it, I plug welded some 3/8 nuts on there so that it locates on the jack puck here okay. And then once I get it up in the air, I would just slide these jack stands underneath it, and you can see where it was bearing there on the wood. So I want to do something similar to that for the C7, and so went to the steel supply yard and bought some 3 by 1.5 3/16 wall rectangular tubing, and this piece is 21 1/4 inches long. This is going to be the rear fixture. I found my DeWalt cutting disc holder is the 1/8 of an inch bigger in diameter than that puck, so it's a good location device to locate these 3/8 nuts. And I'll take the welding electrode and gently drop that in there and plug weld those nuts in place, and that'll help locate it perfectly on the jack so that it's centered up nicely. The other parts of the puzzle here, I've taken some pieces of 2-inch pipe and carefully cut them to make these pieces that will nest into the jack stands. So those are going to fit on there. I'm probably going to take some other pieces of steel and make a location device on there so that it can't slip off the side of the jack stand once it's in place. The other pieces of the puzzle are some pieces of 1/2-inch reinforcing rod. It's going to weld one there and one there, so that when I've got it underneath the car, I just slide it forward until these pieces of rod hook the frame member, and that'll locate it on the frame then. And the last piece of the puzzle is some pieces of 1/2-inch plywood I'm just going to glue on to the fixture so that it is gentle on the frame of the car. So that's what I'm going to do, front and rear, something similar, and then we'll raise the car. One thing important that I forgot to mention, you need to figure out really where you want the contact points to be on the car. A good place to start with that is the owner's manual. This one's for the 2016. They give you a little diagram there. It's kind of hard to read, but if you get up close to it, you can see it. If you get it on the internet, you can find a lot of other stuff. This one, I'll give the credit to the bug man, whoever the bug man is. He's done a good job of color coding it out here, and it's got bug man locations for single jack. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I want to get the weight out to the corners of the frame, so I'm going for this spot here and this spot here on the front. To get this deep into the front with a jack and a fixture is tough to do because you've got the arm of the jack sitting over there right now. You can see it sticking up, but to get that deep into the front end with a jack and a fixture, kind of hard to do. And the back, pretty simple. The back's pretty easy to get to. But anyway, make sure you're picking the right places to put the weight onto the jack or the fixture, whatever it is. So to use it, you'll just pick it up, and with those nuts on the bottom, you got to locate it on the puck of the jack. There's a little bit of wiggle room there, but not so much that it won't stay centered. go ahead and raise it on up. These pins are just about 1/4 of an inch above the wood blocks, so they should hook and locate this perfectly underneath the car right where I want it. And when I get it up high enough, on the C5 it's usually somewhere like right about in there. And then just let it down on the jack stands. At that point I can pull the jack out and get under the car and do whatever I need to do. To jack the car up, I start by sliding one of these low profile ramps behind each wheel, and then I'll put it in reverse, and that'll raise the whole car up about 1.5 inches. And this is just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood with another piece of 3/4 inch screwed onto that. It's about 3 foot long, so I'll slide one of those behind each wheel. Well, for the most part, I guess I'd say that this is working out about like I thought that it would. I've got those wood pitch blocks on in a temporary fashion. I'll permanently attach them when I know everything's good. But where they're at right now, I've got about 1/8 of an inch of daylight right there. So I know that I'm not putting a lot of force right on that point of that cross member. I'm getting the force out to the edges, which is what I want to accomplish. So now it's just a matter of jacking the car up. I've got enough room that I can operate my jack handle. And then bringing the jack stands and placing it underneath when I get it up high enough to do my oil change. So I'll work on the front and then go to the back. Well, the front of the car is up. You want to make sure you raise the front first because it's the lowest to the ground with the air dam and everything up front. If you raise the back first, then what happens is your front tilts down lower still and jack access gets really difficult. The back is a little bit more open, so I'm getting ready to put this fixture underneath the back end here. And the fixture, if you remember, I put some nuts on it that will locate it on the jack there. It's got some rods on each end of it there that'll catch it and position it accurately, and then a wood block to just kind of cushion the blow a little bit on the aluminum. So, get that there. It centers it up on the jack pretty nice. And then it's just a matter of sliding that underneath the car and getting it centered on the cross member before we start raising it. So I've got the jack accurately positioned where I want it, both fore and aft and side to side. You can see the little pieces of rod that hook the cross member to make sure it's positioned correctly fore and aft. And then you just got to visually eyeball it side to side to make sure you get it centered up where it needs to be. After that, it's just raising it up, putting it on the jack stands like we did on the front. So there it is. It's up on 4 jack stands. And I've got enough room underneath the car now to get underneath there and change oil, do whatever else I want to do. And I guess the reason I like doing this is because using these fixtures, and you'll see a lot of people that are actually putting a jack right here, right in the center. And I'm not saying that that wouldn't hold all the weight. People are obviously doing it. But for me, it makes more sense to get the weight of the car distributed out on both ends of that fixture. And so I've got a safe situation here and I'm ready to go to work.